So this week we have a special guest. It is Data Republican from Twitter. If you follow her, she's brilliant. She's also nonverbal. So we have an interpreter who is going to be interpreting her sign language so that you guys can hear exactly what she has to say on the audio recording. So if you hear some pauses and other things like that, that's what's going on. Hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Parody. My name is Dan Dillon. I am the CEO and founder of Not the Bee. I am joined this week by Robin, our writer for the Babylon Bee and co-host, and Mr. B, the tech guru. And we have a very special guest today, Data Republican. You'll know her from her Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, account, Data Republican. She is joining us today for a very special episode and a very timely episode to discuss government efficiency and the big, beautiful bill and Elon Musk and the influence he's had in Washington. And now, as all of that seems to be falling apart around us. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We are very, very excited to have you. Robin, I know that you're a big fan of hers and you've been following her for a long time. What have you seen from her that is most interesting to you, and what would you like to talk about with her today?
Data Republican is amazing. So I first started kind of consuming your content on X when I found this website. It's thedatarepublican.com that you can go type in an NGO and follow the money. Follow where all of the different funds go into these non-government organizations, all of these charities, these nonprofits, all of the USAID stuff, right when things were percolating at the beginning of the Trump administration, when we were all really fixated on Doge. And so I was playing around with this website, and then I found Data Republican on X, and her feed is amazing because she's so cerebral with numbers. If you want to know what's really happening, go follow this account, because anytime I'm kind of consumed with the BS of the big picture story, I go look what Data Republican is saying, because she's like, no, this is what the numbers say. This is what's actually happening. And then she also reshares just some really incredible content. So if you haven't been online and consumed probably the best statistician or data correlation expert out there right now. And I'd love to hear, Data Republican, you tell us a little bit about your background and where you come from and how you got onto this journey of numbers and being associated with Doge. Elon's retweeted you and reached out to you, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a long story, but just so you know, I've been doing this for years, but I just recently became popular and went viral, It was a hobby, really. I mean, I'm a database scientist, so I like the numbers. My background is databases. I'm a database engineer. And so I develop databases that engineer themselves. And I've also developed a lot of tools to help us navigate databases. My specialty is indexing. So I love to build an index. It's a very, very niche, very narrow topic, but that's what I do and I love it. And I think, I could make a big difference with this if I just knew how to apply it to the website. If I could make it functional, make a UI or build a database that I can really dig deep into, but you can't do it because the UI can't do it. It's just too big. The database is too huge. So I integrated my tools, and it allowed me to basically have a giant index of this huge book that nobody can read, but now we have a table of contents.
That's awesome. I don't know if you know this, but my background is actually in tech. And I my undergraduate is in mathematics, and my graduate degree is in aerospace engineering. But then I got into computer science, and I've been doing computer science. And when I started these businesses with my brother, I was helping him build the websites. And so we always are dealing with indexes in our MySQL relational databases, and I'm horrible at them. And I can't ever figure them out. And it is our number one problem with having 47 million comments and reactions and likes inside of our social network that we run. is the indexing and figuring that out. So I definitely need to get your advice at some point in time on how to make our forum for the Babylon Bee even better.
I would be happy to do that. No problem. I get it.
So you have been working on Doge adjacent projects, I'd say, right? So what's been your biggest insight from all of this, from the time that Trump got elected to now, with just waste in government and things that you've been able to figure out through data analysis? What are some of the big things that stick out to you that are just like eye-opening for you?
I think it's just building the connections and seeing the patterns and how deeply connected everything is. Let me give you an example. Well, it's hard to give you an example, but I'll say that the only way to balance is to cut this large thing into chunks, analyze it in small pieces, and find out where the money's flowing and where it's being wasted. And then you'll see that the politicians are lying.
Well, we know that.
And you'll see that they're very, very invested in keeping the corruption because that's how they keep their money.
Did you, at the beginning of this, did you have any hope? I thought when Elon came in that we were going to see change. Maybe I'm really naive. And watching your efforts to really turn the rock upside down and see all the little bugs of the NGOs go scurrying gave me such hope for the first time in my life, political life, of watching politics. Did you think really, truly that we were going to see some change in funding? And do you think going forward that there will be any downsizing, or is it just, are we done now? The train's gone and there's no hope for the US?
That is a loaded question, Robin. But I will answer. Okay, I will answer. So I think at first we were very innocent. We'll find the waste and we'll cut it. I mean, that makes sense. Just, it'd be fine. Clean up house, But then we realized that the waste, quote unquote, is actually what the politicians are doing on purpose because they want to keep it, right? So it's not actually waste. It's just a way they funnel money to themselves. Like what happened this week was really sad because everyone's focused on the wrong thing. We need to realize that Congress is the actual problem. This big, beautiful bill is not the problem. It's Congress. We need to start figuring out a way to do it without Congress. Why don't we do this without Congress? Because Congress is not interested in cutting the waste.
What do you see as being the best way forward for that?
I don't know if we're going to fix it, but I see 3 ways forward. We have options. The first is we primary half of Congress, but that probably won't happen. Let's be honest. The second thing that we could do is we can pass an amendment.
But you rely on Congress to pass an amendment.
Right, exactly. But we rely on Congress, so that probably won't happen. Passing an amendment probably won't happen because, Thirdly, we could have a convention of states. We have around 19 states right now that we've convinced. We need around 15 more. And if it's done locally, I think maybe that's the only way I see a path forward. I would love to hear your opinion though, but that's what I see the path forward. We need to have term limits, a convention of states. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that term limits are important, but for some reason, and I don't know what it is, I don't think you can know unless you get a job in government, but even the people that we elect that we really think are going to make a difference, that we really trust are going to be different and think outside of the normal box, end up getting there and immediately not doing anything. And I don't understand that. Even to, the appointments that have been made.
Yeah,
even the appointments that are made, like Kash Patel.
I think that's common. Honestly, I think that's common. I do have hope that we could have experts to discuss their opinions. And I've been working with these people for a long time. And it's the same way everywhere, right? Like 95% of people, they go with the flow, right? Like, when in Rome, do as the Romans. They don't want to hear big ideas because it's scary, right? It's human nature. It's human nature. Most people in these situations are honestly just trying to do their jobs.
I've spent a little bit of time with friends in Washington working through the press, and over again, I hear exactly what you're saying, that you have people who are very idealistic who get into Congress and then get sucked into this giant machine. And all of a sudden, to win re-election again, they have to promote these bills so their constituents will say, oh, we paid for the parks, or we paid for the water, or we paid for whatever. And you cannot get rid of the bloat because they want to get reelected. But maybe this time around, and kind of to what you were saying, people are starting to see that if we don't get some things under control, we aren't going to have a country in 10 years. And I've heard more and more people, not just the libertarians, but more and more mainstream Democrats and Republicans saying, look, if we don't get funding under control, I mean, I have kids. Any of us with kids know that in 5, 10 years, 15 years, it's going to be their problem as they come online as adults.
I'm going to throw something up from the President of the United States that was said today. So I'll see if you guys agree with this statement. It is a little over the top, I would say, but let's take a look at it real quick. It is this statement from Donald Trump. The easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. This is coming from Donald Trump, who up until, yesterday, Trump and Elon have seemed to have very positive relationship, wanted the same thing. But this big, beautiful bill and the disagreement about it is kind of blowing that up. And Elon's response to it, which I'm going to save for a minute, it escalates this war even further. But who do you think is in the right here? Is there a bill that needs to be passed independent of Elon's cuts that he wants that might even bloat things a little bit, but have really important things in it? That's what Trump is arguing. Or do you think that Elon is right to just kind of blow this whole thing up because he thought that it was all going to happen with this included in this bill, and we weren't going to ever see anything else like raising of the debt ceiling or any further increase in our deficit?
Well, firstly, I hope both of them go to church this Sunday. That's all I want to say. We all go to church after all of this. And I understand. It's forgiven. We all become emotional. It's a human thing, but I understand. But, we all have feelings. But, first I have to say that I've been in big tech for a really long time. And it's a place where smart people get hired, but also a place where a lot of emotional people get hired, right? And so what Elon is doing, I've seen that happen before. It's just not to this scale. I haven't seen it on this scale, but I have seen something like this happen before. So about the bill itself, I think both people are right, okay, in their own respective situations. But I also think that they're both focused on the wrong thing. And we need to give up on Congress. We need to stop expecting Congress to do anything. Congress, forget it. They're not going to do anything. We have to find another way.
But don't you think that Trump should have enough influence? Like, that's the thing that I was talking about earlier about you vote for people that you really think are from the outside and are going to do something different, right? Don't you think somebody, and you would think it would be Trump, would have the ability to convince Congress to actually do something, and some of the people that he's hired in the FBI and some of the people that he's hired in these other places to actually go against the flow. There's got to be people out there that are willing to stand up to the swamp creatures. It felt like we were voting for that. But then these things happen, and it's just, I understand we can't rely on Congress, but then it's like we also put the person in the Oval Office that also put the people on the judiciary that we thought were going to be able to make a difference. The people on the judiciary are failing us almost weekly, and the person in the Oval Office seems to, at least in this case, be going back on his word about some of the things that seemed to be really important to him prior to the election.
Well, and one thing about Trump, too, to remember is, from what I remember from 2016 and in this election, he hasn't really run on reducing the the budget that much. I mean, he hasn't really said anything about entitlement projects, programs, and taking down, because that's where it really is, right? The majority.
He did before his first presidency. It was not a focus in 2024, but before 2016, that was one of his big things. I mean, he sounded a lot like Elon. Back when you look at his tweets from 2013, 14, 15, up to the time that he actually ran for president, Elon's been retweeting some of these old tweets of his all day about how if you ever raise the debt ceiling, basically you should be expelled from Congress. And so it doesn't seem like that's the same guy here. It's like Washington changes people more than people change Washington. And that's the thing that I don't understand, is because you would think Trump of all people would be immune to it. And it doesn't, and it doesn't appear that he is, or at least he's maybe. You have to take some wins with some losses. And maybe that's the positive way to look at this, right? And Trump is good at managing those things. But this interpersonal conflict is going to sink a lot more and cause a lot more issues within the Republican Party than if they had just both stayed quiet about it. That's for I'm sure.
And neither one has the self-control to hold back. That's what I've said from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Neither Elon nor Trump really, once the gloves come off, it's going to all come out.
Well, and to that statement, we'll add this to the screen real quick. This was Elon's response. Time to drop the really big bomb. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein Files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT.
Jeez.
Is that surprising to anyone?
So I guess, obviously, right, we hope that there's more to the story than that, right? We obviously hope there's more to the story than that. And even though this is petty, we're hoping progress will be made. And I'll go back to what I said. Sunday is a really good day to go to church.
What were you going to say, Mr. B?
Don't we think that if Trump was in the Epstein files, that the Democrats would have used that leading up to this election?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but then again, it hasn't been actually released. So they're keeping it really secret. I don't know why.
Well, and that's the thing, I guess, right? So you're right, Mr. B, that you would think that if Trump was in there, they would be willing to burn every house down in order to have sunk him, right? Like, or shot every ship down, plane down, whatever. But there are enough people probably also on that Epstein list, if you ever were actually able to find it, that they wouldn't want to take down so many of their own with him. And they know they can't just release a list that just has Donald Trump on it. So the problem is, if he really is on the list, it's the same thing as everything else. These are all criminals, and they are all in this criminal enterprise where they're protecting each other. And that's half of what they're doing, is writing bills and funneling money places in order to help protect each other from these types of things. In my personal opinion, I'm reading this from Elon, and to me, it just feels like a personal dig. It feels like a attempt to kind of just go nuclear on this conversation and really cause a stir.
Well, and also Trump is in the Epstein files. We know he is. We've seen the pages mentioning his name,
Correct.
But it's very benign, what we've seen. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not worse stuff somewhere else, but everybody who has been on the nightly news in the last 20 years is listed somewhere in the Epstein files. Every single politician, every single movie star. So just saying that he's in the Epstein files, I'm not defending, or I have no idea, but that doesn't really say much. I don't think, my personal opinion, and I've said this before on the show, I don't think there's anything we're ever going to learn from the Epstein files that will incriminate anyone, because the people in charge of them that have had their fingers in them long enough have destroyed any real evidence. I'd love to hear thoughts on that.
Yeah. My opinion is that if Trump is really guilty, of doing the really bad things, then the files being released would obviously be a bad thing. But obviously, I see a path, it's possible that maybe he was targeted by Epstein or something like that. Maybe they will find something that makes Trump look bad. I don't know, or maybe it's just a theory. And to add to that, many people who are in those Epstein files were targets. It was like Epstein was trying to influence these people to do whatever. It doesn't mean really bad things actually happen. And that's why I agree with Robin that maybe we'll never really know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. And Elon knows that Trump's name is definitely in the files. And so he's not saying anything incorrect here. But he also knows the firestorm it's going to cause to post that, and the break that it's going to make between him and Trump, which honestly also could be somewhat of a calculated political move from Elon's standpoint as well, because his involvement in the Trump administration so far has not helped his companies significantly. But now when we're talking about him getting his government contracts cut, I think Tesla's down quite a bit today. SpaceX isn't publicly traded, but I would imagine that investors are getting a little bit nervous that he's going after the hand that feeds a little bit, right? And not that Elon doesn't have the capability to run these businesses without subsidies, but it certainly gets a lot harder to do what he wants to do and to go to Mars and to do all those things if you don't have government funding to subsidize it.
So I'd love to hear real quick, kind of bouncing from the Data Republican. Now that Doge is still going to exist.
Yeah, there's no one innocent in all this. That's all I was just going to say. There's just nobody innocent in all this. It's on both sides. Everybody has some guilt. It's everywhere.
But and I'd like to know, going forward with your work, are you going to still be working with Doge and working to uncover some of this going on? Because US aid is still corrupt. At the end of the day, it's still happening.
Yes, of course. I've talked about this before. Doge, they tried to hire me, from the very beginning, like January. At Inauguration Day is when they found me in Washington, D.C. And there was just a lot of blocks in the hiring process. I was just blocked and blocked and blocked and blocked. And, in April or May-ish, my mom told me, maybe I realize why it's hard for you. And I decided, okay, I'll probably have more influence outside of Doge. I think that's probably the correct thing to do now, especially the way that things are looking. And that being said, I've done some work with Doge, have no problem with what they're doing. I just will be more effective as my own entity. And I've been distracted the last 2 weeks but I think I'm convinced that I'm going to continue the way that I'm going.
So our show exists because of our sponsors. And this week we are sponsored by Graci. Graci is the refreshment you didn't know you needed. Boost your immunity naturally with Graci, organic barley water. Loaded with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, Graci is the original wellness drink, an MMA sponsor, equipped to help detoxify your body and keep your digestion on point. Try Graci today and start feeling good, naturally. For a 20% discount, use code NTB, as in not the B, NTB20 at Graci.com/discount/NTB20. Go ahead and visit. Go ahead and try it. It's delicious. We've had it here in the office and we all love it. Thanks. Turning our attention from Elon and Trump to other news, there are some other things happening in the world, believe it or not. Before we leave Trump, I don't know the details exactly of it yet, but apparently Trump got on the phone with China today, and there's a preliminary deal now that's supposed to be worked out for trade. So I don't know if that's just a distraction type of a story or not, but it seems like something's going to work there. I would imagine that you'll see a lot of movement in the stock market, a lot of growth in the stock market with any type of potential deal between China and the United States on trade. Another big story is that the Babylon Bee, who is our sister company, I am an owner of both companies, the Babylon Bee and Not the Bee. We are suing the state of Hawaii. And that's kind of breaking news.
Yay!
The state of Hawaii wants to make comedy illegal. And so the Babylon Bee has stepped up with Alliance Defending Freedom, and we are pursuing legal action. because they are trying to pass a bill that would make any type of false characterization of a politician, whether it's humorous or not, satirical or not, illegal. So basically, if you put words in the mouth of a politician that they didn't actually say, which is what we do on a daily basis, that's in fact our entire job at the Babylon Bee, not the Bee, but that would be illegal and as an actual felony. So if we operate our satirical website in the state of Hawaii, we could be facing jail time, we could be facing fines, we could be facing, a lot of different bad scenarios. And of course, I don't think that there's any way that they would be able to enforce this law. But at the same time, we have some friends in higher places and some funding that we can actually pursue fighting this before it became law, because there would be some other people that don't have as many resources that could become targets of this. And I think it's really important that it doesn't become law. And so we are just starting that. We were kind of announcing that this morning on our website. Not to be, we wrote an article about it. You can check it out if you want all the details about that lawsuit and exactly what the state of Hawaii is trying to do, because it's really messed up. If anything is defended by the First Amendment, it's free speech, and very specifically, as our founding fathers discussed, even a couple hundred years ago, satire. Satire is one of the most important things, one of the most important ways to discuss politics. And if you make satire illegal, honestly, obviously it's not a good thing. And it's obviously not legal, and it's obviously not constitutional. And there might be some hope for the Supreme Court. We got one of our first unanimous rulings today as well. And I'm going to bring up the article from Not the Bee about what happened today in the Supreme Court.
I think you guys should have just submitted the First Amendment.
We did that once.
Just as your entire lawsuit. Just send in the First Amendment.
That's it. That's all you have to do. All right. So straight women, quote unquote, finally had their day at the Supreme Court. And CNN seems a little bit mad about it. Supreme Court sides with straight women in decision that makes it easier to file reverse discrimination suits. So basically the ruling sides with a woman who says that she was passed over for promotion because she was straight. And I think that it was pretty obvious from the facts of the case that she was. And of course, there's a higher bar, a higher standard required for straight people, white people, any majority to prove that they've been discriminated against than a minority, which is ridiculous because, we're all supposed to be equally protected under the law. So I was really surprised by this. I don't know, maybe anybody else here wants to talk about this, but to find a unanimous decision from a Supreme Court that includes Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they actually sided with reality and the Constitution to say that no, even people who are part of a racial majority are protected, should be protected equally and shouldn't be unduly burdened. Are you guys surprised by that? I'm honestly very surprised by it.
Reading through it, I don't know how they could have ruled any other way. And it's heartening to know that at least there is black and white left in the law somewhere. It reminded me very quickly of a little anecdote. When my husband and I were first married, I applied for a job at a floral shop by our house. And this is a little different case because this isn't minority discrimination. But the lady interviewed me and she said, "You're perfect for the job, but I'm not going to hire you because you're young and you're probably going to have a baby soon. And you just got married, and I don't want to hire anybody that's about to leave on maternity leave." And Jeez. I went home and told my husband that. Like, the lady just told me that in the interview. And he said, "We should sue them for discrimination." I said, "I'm not suing this little floral shop." But it did, reading through this, because that seems so obvious. Obviously, you can't not hire someone because of their age, because they might have a baby, and I wasn't even pregnant, but they might have a baby.
But let's be fair, Robin, there was a very high likelihood that you would have a baby at any moment.
I did have a baby within the year, but she didn't know that, and she couldn't have not hired me legally for that anyway. And I hate the term reverse discrimination anyway. I think it's just discrimination writ large.
Right.
So I'm heartened to see that at least the more liberal justices on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote the opinion. So I'll put this back up real quick. but a unanimous coalition of conservative and liberal justices were in the majority. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote the opinion for the court. Our case law thus makes clear that the standard for proving disparate treatment under Title VII does not vary based on whether or not the plaintiff is a member of a majority group. I mean, that's like legal clarity from Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I've never seen that at any point in time in any of her opinions on anything that she's written since she's been on the Supreme Court. I
would like to explain something here. Remember, there's more women than men, right? And if that becomes legal, they can't say that women are discriminated against. Do you see what I mean? Because there's more women in the population than there is men. So
right.
If that law is passed, you can see the problem.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Women are no longer the minority, but they are still a protected class. And so you have to be able to define these legal terms. What is a minority? What is a protected class? So it's better just to have a blanket standard for everything.
Yeah, why don't we just let everybody be treated equally under the law? It seems like a brilliant idea to me, something that maybe we should return to. But as it applies to the Babylon Bee suing the state of Hawaii as well, it does give me hope that there is, like you said, some black and white left in law, right? Like there's some things that are just so obviously, blatantly clear based upon the Constitution that all of the liberal justices and conservative justices can at least agree on something. It gives me a little bit of hope.
Well, the majority ruling in the Supreme Court is still 0-9. So the majority of cases ruled, which is crazy to think about with all the division, but it is still 0-9 and then 1-8. That's the majority of cases, the way they're ruled. We just hear of these big controversial cases that bubble up, and they're very much more divided.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of commerce cases and other types of cases are majority ruled, which is, again, we're not as divided as people want us to think we are in the US. We have a lot more in common, even left, right, than the pundits and the mainstream media want us to think.
Yes. Well said, Robin. Well said. So at this point in time, we usually go to a little crazy clip of the week. We have a purple hair meltdown as a usual thing. And so we're going to play that today. There's some strong language in this clip, so we'll just warn you, we will beep things out. But it's a pretty unhinged, I would say, clip. So let's go ahead and watch this together and then give our feedback and commentary.
Pride Month. What about veterans and Veterans Month? Well, there's already a month for that, you dumb. But hold on a second. What about transgender troops who served in our military who got kicked out under the Trump administration? You un-American A lot of these individuals served well over 10 years in the military, sacrificed everything, only to get a letter saying, sorry, you're no longer welcome here because of who you are. What the is wrong with you? It's anti-American to its core. You show nothing but disdain and disgust for these individuals, and it's gross. And frankly, members of this community, regardless of if they served in the military or not, have more courage than you or I ever will. I'm so sick of this, okay? And if you are a member of the LGBTQ plus community, happy Pride Month. I love you. You're amazing. And in these times, I can only imagine it's very hard, but please know there's people out there that love and support you. And I already know there's going to be some MAGA dude making a stitch. Go cry somewhere else, bro, all right? Jesus.
Woo!
Whoa.
That's a lot of beeps.
We're going to...
Yeah, good luck.
The whole thing's going to be a bleep.
I don't know. There's two discussions. Who is this guy? It's Harry Crowley, not Harry Sisson.
It's not Harry Sisson. I think it's one of his friends, though, I think. Or at least a other young whatever.
Yeah, I don't know his name.
How many coffees did this guy have?
But there's a lot to unpack there. I'm a strong supporter of veterans. My dad is a veteran. My brother is a veteran. But if you have a mental health diagnosis, you can't serve in the military. If you have if you're colorblind, you can't serve in the military. So I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to go to the military. You know, I grew up in a military family myself. And that was something that I would want to do. But I obviously skipped that life. Yeah, and I can't cry about it. I have a good life here.
Well, the whole idea, what he touches on in that, which I think is really the real, if I want to use the word trigger, but the trigger for me is listening to somebody talk about how those people have more courage than you or I do, just simply because of the fact that they're LGBTQ plus or whatever, right? Like, just because they're a part of this community, they supposedly have more courage than any of us. So they actually should be the most likely people to be admitted into the military. But it's just some of this is just for clicks, and some of it is for shock value and clicks for sure, and just people being ignorant and celebrating their ignorance.
Well, there's a question I wanted to ask Data Republican along this topic, and that is there's kind of this giant pundit Twitter sphere on both sides. You've got libs of TikTok, you've got Harry Sisson over here. I'm curious if through her work, she's been sucked in a little bit to this, if people have reached out to try to get you to join, the movement of what do you call them? Twitter personalities, influencers, online. Because you have content that you share. You have real substantial content, whereas a lot of the influencers are just kind of resharing and reposting. But I'm curious if you've been part of that culture at all now, that if that makes any, online culture, if they've tried to kind of suck you into posting for different causes and different groups. Or
yeah, we've seen some situations where you get all of the right-wing pundits kind of saying the same thing at the same time. Has anybody reached out to you and tried to pull you into that?
Oh yeah, they reach out to me all the time, and it just doesn't feel. It's hard to explain, but it just doesn't feel. I don't feel called to the culture war in that stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like me. I feel like other people do a good job doing that, but my business is uncovering truth. I'm an investigator and a tool builder. I'm focused on the numbers, and also on history and the meat of the problem. Whoever hears it, and good. We want people to hear it, but I'm more interested in the truth.
So they didn't give you the Epstein binders when it came out?
No, thank goodness. I don't need that crap.
I was a little upset that we didn't get invited to that at first, but I'm actually, now we dodged a bullet.
You can't say that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Woo. So let us know a little bit about one of your most recent posts. I think it's still your pinned post on X about a project that you're working on. You're going to be writing a book. What's that about? Do you want to say anything about it and announce anything about it today?
Oh, that's pinned? Dang, I didn't change that. But I do have things I want to talk about. It just depends on how it's going. Right now, I have an editor reviewing it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, and maybe I'll give up or maybe I'll keep writing it. We'll see what happens, one step at a time.
Do you mind letting us know a little bit about what it's about, or are you keeping that completely secret?
It's my passion project. It's my art. It's a fiction book, but it's not my priority. I have priorities for now that I'm working on, but I'll go back and forth working on it.
Who are some of your biggest influences, fiction influences, when you're like, who do you like to read? I love Orson Scott Card. I mean, I'm from Utah, so we all do here, but I'd love to hear some of your tech inspirations.
My big influence is that I follow that author takes a lot of my focus. Terry Goodkind.
I know Terry.
His books are interesting because he writes all about politics, right? They're almost like fan fiction books for politics. But if you read really closely, he really writes about what's happening in modern politics. For example, the first book, he has a pantheon with who has thick ankles. In one of his books, he wrote about Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton as antagonists. They were actually the antagonists in the books. And he called them BC and HC, right? And HC had thick ankles.
What?
I think she does normally anyway, right?
So that's really influenced me. Yes.
So do you like the Wheel of Time series, or is that too much just straight fantasy for you?
Oh yeah, the Wheel of Time. I lost interest about after 3 books, but I prefer to keep things more limited, more condensed.
There's an author I read years ago. His name's Daniel Suarez. I'm curious if anybody here has read him. But he wrote a book called Daemon, Daemon, about the rise of it's very science fiction, the rise of AI, kind of how it plays out. It was written 20 years ago. It's a book I've read.
Is Freedom, isn't it? Daemon
Yes.
and Freedom. Oh, I love those books.
Yeah, they're so good. And they're they keep getting more and more real as we move into more of an AI sphere. They're a little more PG-13, so I haven't had my teenage sons read them yet. But if you're listening and you haven't read Daemon, it's a phenomenal book. Yeah, and Freedom. They're really good books on just kind of the rise of AI and the relationship of government contracts and AI. Very interesting stuff.
And speaking of AI, I heard that you were developing an LLM. Is that correct? Is that true?
Not exactly developing an LLM, but recently I've been playing with, figuring out how to run an LLM on my website, So it's not necessarily building the LLM, but more about integration, running it on a specific database. And I'm trying to integrate a way that you can type your request and like an award for Ukraine for something like that. And it would pop up without needing to actually query.
So, not to get too technical here, but it's kind of like creating a vector database out of a relational database?
Yeah, you could see it like that, but the hard part is to design that. There's a lot of custom things that you can't just feed the database into an LLM and expect the LLM to know and understand what the database is, So it's more about an integration problem where the LLM.
And for those who don't know, who are listening, LLM means large language model. I don't know if everybody knows that.
The request changes the structure is what's happening here.
So, okay, another question I have, which is again kind of a niche question, but an LLM that's working on your own database, can it still hallucinate, and is that still a major problem?
Well, about changing English queries to something more structured. So the interesting thing is if you feed data into the LLM, you can, but that's the wrong way to use the LLM. If you want a custom domain, it's best to move it outside of the LLM and then design an LLM in a way that understands the user input. So the LLM becomes more like a transferable, but that's what it's called, right? A transfer.
Well, I'm thinking that what she's saying is that the LLM acts as a query builder in the sense, but it's building the query using regular language and to a certain extent, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
I have a degree in humanities.
I've thought about doing that with APIs. It would be really interesting if you established a way for APIs to speak to each other in regular language, because so many APIs, you spend so much time going through an API and trying to figure out exactly what routes you need to hit to get what information. And you have to figure out exactly what the syntax is. And this one might have been built, on a different operating system or a different programming language or a different database. And so there's all these different syntax differences between them. And of course, that's always been an issue. But if you just simply had an interface, let's call it an interface, between the two computers that are talking to each other, where they're all speaking the same language, and that language is just simple, user input language, the API could request what it wants, and the API that it's speaking to could understand what it was asking for without having to worry about figuring all that out. Now, these are kind of problems that you're solving that almost are outdated just because it's so easy now to have an LLM look at an API and tell you exactly how to integrate with that database or with that API. But it's still kind of cool. Like, it's an awesome thing that could possibly be done.
I've been working with LLMs a lot for the website for the Data Republican, and I've done a lot of building with LLMs recently. And, the interesting thing is that it's really hard. It's surprisingly hard, right? Like, I want to give it my book, read my book. I don't want it to read the whole book. I just want the important information from the book. The LLM can't do it. You have to integrate something called a RAG, R-A-G, but that it's a pain point. It's a pain in the neck. It's a real pain in the neck to try to integrate that. So it's very limited at this point.
Yeah. I have found the same things for sure. It's the potential is insane, and the potential is legitimately for some sort of general intelligence. These things will eventually power those, but in the short term, it is still like you can see the future when you're working with them, but it's still frustrating how difficult it is to really get them to do what you want them to do if you have to go off the beaten path, even just the littlest bit. All right. So
I thought that was the best way to understand that, is to think about it like a transformer that doesn't know. It doesn't know what to transform. It doesn't know how to transform or what it's transforming.
Robin, real quick, do you want to go ahead and read?
All right, so I'll start with Updotes. All right, so we're going to start with the Updotes page. We're going to read a few from Updotes this week, and then a few from Featured, and a few that got published this week from our subscribers. So here's the first one. These are ones that have been nominated by other forum users for recognition. The top one from Anaphylaxis. Former President Biden autopins new book, If I Forgot. Oh, I love that.
That's good. There's a lot of layers to that. I like that.
Anna, I would steal that, but it's already in print, so it's all yours. All right, this one's from Ruthie J 714. MAGA husband not so happy with wife's big, beautiful bill. Oh, that's great. I love it. All right, Kurgel's great. Daredevil dad tells toddler to hold it till the next rest stop. I'm guessing she means a bathroom break. Yeah. At ShowQuest, Trump cancels another gay icon by renaming the Barack Obama Presidential Library. That's a good one.
All right, you want to go over to, let's go over to Featured.
All right, Featured, here we go. Okay, so these are ones that get featured on the homepage, but not necessarily they get published. Okay, from Optimus Bartlederp. Wife rebrands credit card statement as one big beautiful bill. Okay, so we've got
multiples of that.
We've got a theme here.
We got a theme.
All right, from at Tyler Montgomery. Kid not allowed to play outside until ChatGPT has finished his homework.
I like that.
That's
great.
All right, from Little Jedi. Little Jedi's great. He's a big wig over at the forum. Harvard offers land acknowledgement to devout Puritan founders. Oh, that's a good one. Who knows who was there first, honestly. And another one from Tyler Montgomery. Sad. Local furniture store closes after 48-year going out of business sale.
That's awesome. I love that.
Okay,
all right,
and here are the ones that got published this week. So these are ones that forum users wrote that we then published on our headline or our homepage. Sorry, navigating over. All right, from Burt Reynolds, Navy renames USNS Harvey Milk to USNS No Homo. That's great.
That was great too. The Photoshop that went with that was awesome.
So great.
That was good.
Okay, at David Johnson, England finally arrests Muslim rapists. Oh, geez, that's the Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate got arrested or got charged.
That one made a big splash.
Yeah, it sure did. It was a good one. From at Original Boss Fan 1, because there's more than one. Housewarming party begins with land acknowledgement for the Johnsons who lived here starting in 2019. That's great. And let's do one more from Original Boss Fan 1. Biden Macron form support group for battered and abused husbands.
Man.
Oh,
That was, of course, because the slap seen around the world on the French, whatever they call their Air Force One, Air Force One.
French One. But thanks, guys, for submitting. Keep throwing those headlines out there. We love our subscribers.
Yeah, there's a couple of things just to give a little bit of a plug. Subscribing to the Babylon Bee is what supports the Babylon Bee and not the Bee. Obviously, we want you to subscribe to both, but we also want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want you to go ahead and click the like button down below. We also want you to click the little icon to be reminded when we have a new episode. Robin just pointed at things, and I don't know if the graphics are going to go there or not, but it looked good. All right, so at this point, let's turn things over to Mr. B, who likes to ask all of our guests questions, a couple little personal questions that don't have to do with politics, but just to get to know you a little better and also to get to know the panel a little bit better. So, Mr. B, what do you got for us this week?
Okay, Data Republican, I know that everyone wants to get to know more about you, so what is your favorite movie, your favorite food, and favorite vacation spot?
Okay, thank you. Let's see. My favorite movie is probably Life is Beautiful.
Oh,
yeah. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And my favorite food? Ooh, I guess I could easily say bacon. It's just got to be bacon, guys. Oh. And then thirdly, my favorite vacation spot. Well, it sounds bad. I already know.
What is it going to be?
I love going to Vegas. Viva Las Vegas.
Good job.
Have you won any money in Vegas?
Oh, I like to go to Vegas and play Pokemon.
Poker?
No, Pokemon. You know Pokemon Go?
Like Pokemon Go?
There's good Pokemon to be caught in Vegas. So if you play Pokemon Go to Vegas and catch.
What's great is I took my kids to Japan last year, and there's Pokemon over there I didn't even know existed. It was pretty great. It was very good Pokemon hunting in Tokyo.
Ooh, that's good. We gotta go.
Okay, Robin.
Hello.
What's something that recently made you emotional in a good way?
Oh, I'm a crier. I'm a weeper.
I think the buzz on her headphones made her emotional a little bit.
Yeah, the audio issues, the fact that I have to wear my son's alien headphones today. Something that made me, so I have older kids and younger kids, and my older kids are so sweet with my babies. And so I think just with school getting out, watching my teenagers take care of in fact, I've got a teenager babysitting the babies right now. But that makes me emotional, watching how sweet. The older kids are not sweet with each other, but they're very sweet to the younger kids. And there's something very harmonious in a home about watching the 15-year-old pick up the 1-year-old when she's fallen and gotten hurt, and scoop her up. It's really endearing. I love a big family. People think all the time that we have like a mixed home because I have teenagers and then 2 really young kids, but we just have a giant gap in between. I burnt out after the first 3.
I know what makes Dan emotional is the fact that his kids will be driving soon.
Well, not too soon, but I do
sooner than you know it.
I have a 12-year-old, but my plan is to let Elon's cars drive them everywhere so they don't have to learn how to drive. That's the plan. Elon's cars drive me everywhere now. I don't really drive myself much anymore. I'm always on full self-driving. It's legit, by the way, if you haven't tried it before. It's good.
Yeah, it was very strange for me the first time I drove in a Tesla, and I don't trust that sort of thing. I was in a situation where I was with the one person on the planet I probably trust the most, besides my wife, in a vehicle that I don't trust at all. So I was having a very emotional day.
Awesome. All right, you got one more, Mr. B?
Yes. Data Republican, We saw a cute little kitty running around in the background. What's the cat's name, and is there a fun story?
His name is Bourbon. His name is Bourbon.
Bourbon. Nice.
Well, he's just a big boy. We love ragdoll cats, and he's our only pet. And so,
I didn't realize it was a cat, honestly. It looked really big.
He's 20 pounds.
It's like, is it a
That's giant.
It's like a panther.
Yeah, he's really big. But he's scared of everything. Like, my husband had like a small dog, like just a few pounds, and we have a picture of them together, but the cat looks absolutely terrified of this little tiny dog just sitting there.
That's so cute. All right. Well, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on all the big news stories that we've got going on. I really hope this feud dies down a little bit. We've got some serious tempers flaring this week. Hopefully, even by the time you guys listen to this episode, maybe there's a little bit of reconciliation, but a boy can hope, boy can dream, right? But anyway, I had a great time with you, and I had a great time with the panel today, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week on Beyond Parody. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.